Hello guys, you're welcome to today's video. Thank you very much for stopping by if this is your first time here, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you very much for sticking by. So in today's video, I'm going to be taking us through how I made these gowns, okay? And these clothes are actually for women that are on the big side. As you can see that it doesn't really fit me properly, so it is not actually my size. But I'm just going to be taking us through the process of making this gown. So if this is what you want, so just stick around to the end of this video. Thank you. So right here I have the fabric that I'll be using, okay, and the colors are champagne gold and burnt orange. So I have one trouser of each of these materials, okay, and it will be sufficient for what I want to do. Also, I have the fringes that I'll be adding at the joining, and I will also be using Scuba. So these are the materials that we'll be using for our gown. Okay, so I started by folding my fabric on the table into four, as you can see, and I'm just going into straighten out the edges. Okay, so this is just to avoid any future issues with proper alignment when I want to join the sides. Okay, so as you can see on the fold, I have the shoulder line of the dress is closed. Okay, so I folded in such a way that the shoulder, okay, of both the front and the back is closed. It is not open, so that way we don't have to join or seam our shoulders. But if your fabric will not allow you, to have such closure like this, you can just go ahead and you just have to seam for both the front and the back shoulders together. Okay, so now we are going to be going in with our measurement, and on fold, from the center back to the sleeve, I have 20 inches, and then vertically from the shoulder to the hem of the gown, I have 30 inches. That is for the upper half. I have 30 inches. Okay, so for the center back to the sleeve, the reason why I have 20 inches is because I'm going to be joining my asooke about 2.5 or 3 inches later at the hem of the sleeve. Okay, so overall at the end I'll be having 23 inches, because as you can see on the style, the sleeve actually extended beyond the elbow. So I have 20 inches on fold here. At the end I'll be adding a asooke of 3 inches, okay, which will make it 23 inches. So I'm going in with my neckline measurements now, and for the back measurement I am using 1 inch neckline depth, and for the neck width I used 3.25 inch, and I'll just connect the line, curve it and cut it out, just as you see me do. So after that, the next thing I did is to determine the armhole of my gown. Okay, so for this, it depends on what you want, how free you want it to be, but I am going in with 13 inches, as you can see me mark. Okay, so you can use 10, you can use 11, you can use 12, but for me I am using 13 inches, and that includes my seam allowance of 1 inch. So after taking out my 1 inch seam allowance, I'll be left with 12 inch. So I really want this gown to be free, so because it is a ready-made, ready to wear dress, okay, that is targeted towards married women, and most times they are usually on the big side. That is why I want it to be this free. So on the armhole measurement, I am going in with my round measurement, and for the round measurement I marked out 16.5. Now this 16.5 includes my seam allowance of 1.5 inch. Okay, so the actual measurement that I'll be left with at the end of the day, after taking out my 1.5 inch, will be that will be 15 inches. Okay, so I'm actually working with hip round of 44 divided by 4 is 11 inch. So to that 11 inch I added 5.5 inch, which gave me 16.5. Okay, so usually I add 5 inch is allowance, but because of the joining that we are going to have at the center front, we are still going to have a scuba joining, okay, at the center front. That is why I used that extra 0.5. okay, so what I just have there is my hip round divided by 4 plus 5.5 inch. I hope you understand what I said. So I have connected the lines. Okay, I marked my 16.5 all the way down. Okay, at this point there is no adjustment yet. I use the same measurements from, you know, throughout the body for the upper parts. Okay, so I measured 16.5 down, I connected the lines, and I just went in with my pattern master to make my curve at the arm or side. Okay, so at this point I am going in by 1 inch at the sleeve area so that I can have my sleeve slant. Okay, so that it will not just be straight. So I just marked out my 1 inch. I went in by 1 inch, and I'm just going to connect that to my shoulder line. The next thing I'm doing now is marking out the pocket side. Okay, the vertical measurement for my pocket, and I'm marking it at 17 inches, 17 to 24 inches. Okay, so that is what I marked out right there. Okay, so having done all that, I'm just cutting out my fabric now. I'm cutting out the measurements that we have marked out so that we can separate the back from the front, and then we can focus on the front. So the next thing to do now is to separate the front from the back. Okay, so just carefully lift up your clothes just like you see me do, and by doing so you would have successfully separated your front bodies from the back. Okay, but before you do so, please make sure you notch your pocket line. Okay, I didn't show it here, but I actually did notch the pocket line that I marked at the 17 and 24 inches line before you separate. So just go ahead and notch your pocket and separate your dress. Okay, so now for the front, I'm going to be going in with the depth, okay, for the V neck part. Okay, if you look at the dress very well, you see that there is an opening like a V shaped. Okay, the depth of that V shape, you determine how deep you want it to go. Okay, if you don't want it to be too revealing, you don't want it to expose, you know, the upper chest, 8 inches is just perfect. Okay, so just going with your desired measurements, and it also depends on the body size you are working with. It has to be comfortable enough to allow, you know, the head to pass through. Okay, so I used 8 inches depth, and I just connected that using my ruler, okay, in a V shaped down to the neckline that I already have. You can see that I maintained that neck width. I only connected the 8 inches down. Okay, so after doing that, we are going to be cutting that front part open, and we are going to be removing some fabric, and that is what we are going to be replacing with our black scuba. Okay, and I'm just marking out that part that we are going to cut off, and I'm marking out 2.5 inches, and that will go straight down. So the 2.5 inch that you are marking out would run from the 8-inch neck depth. Okay, that is where it will start from. That's part where the V shape stops is where the 2.5 would start from. Okay, and then you run it straight down. You measure it straight down to the hem of your gown. Okay, to the hem of the upper part. So I'm just marking that 2.5 from the 8-inch neck depth for my V down to the hem, and I'm just going to connect it. So I'm just connecting the lines now, and like I said, we are marking out 2.5, and we are going to be cutting out that 2.5, but we are going to be replacing it with our scuba. So on our scuba, we are going to be cutting 3 inches. That 3 inches includes the 0.5 seam allowance, so that at the end of the day we have the exact 2.5 that we have cut out on our fabric. I hope you understand that. So you connect from that V back to the 2.5 with a vertical line outward, as you see me do. So I connected from that V shape, that V neck, that 8 inches, I connected it back to the 2.5 inches. Don't forget that I said that our 2.5 is starting from that 8-inch point. So I just connected it vertically out back, and then I am connecting from my neck width back to that 8 inches, our new extension. We have extended our V shape out. Okay, so I am connecting from that neck width to that extension that we have now, and that will be our new V neckline, and that is what we are going to be cutting out. I hope you understand what I am saying. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, our V neckline is not that sharp anymore. Okay, so this is the new line that we are going to be using. Also, make sure to notch on that 8 inches depth. Okay, that straight line where you connected the 8 inches to the 2.5. As you can see that I notched mine here, so please make sure that you also notch yours. It is very, very important. So that straight line where you ruled, okay, the depth of your the 8 inches depth where you connected it to the 2.5, so just make sure that you notch that out. Okay, also make sure to notch your center back, okay, because you are going to be needing the measurement as well. So with all that done, we are now going to move to cutting our scuba. Now, to get what we are going to cut out for our scuba, we are going to be measuring round. Okay, so you're going to be measuring round from the center back, just as it is still on fold, to the hem of the gown. But first of all, you need a measurement from the center back to that V part where you notched. Okay, that part where I said you should notch earlier, you are going to be needing, you need that measurement first. Okay, because that will be the opening for your V. Okay, so you take the measurements from the center back to that patch, to that part that you notched, and you just note that measurement down. For me, I have 14.5 inches. So just get a sheet of paper and just write it somewhere so that you don't forget. So after taking note of that measurement, then you go ahead and measure what you have left. Okay, at the lower part down to the hem, you go ahead and note what you have. Okay, so at the end of the day, you are going to sum up the measurements that you have, okay, from the part where you notched to the hem of your gown, and from the center back to that part where you notched. That will determine the total length of your strip. So whatever that measurement is, you are going to be cutting two of it, okay, because we have our fabric on fold right here. So for me, I have 35 inches from my center back to the hem, 35 inches for one side. That means that I'll be cutting two of that 35 inches strip. Okay, which means that in total I'll be having 70 inches, but my fabric is not up to 70 inches in length. Okay, so basically I'm going to be cutting 35 inches in two places, and then I will join it together. So that joining will just be my demarcation for my center back. I hope you understand what I said. So 35 inches for one side, 35 inches for another side. Don't forget to add 0.5 inches for both of those 35 inches because you are going to be joining them. Okay, and that joining should be your center back so that it will be easy for you to identify your center back. Okay, okay, so right here I have cut out my black strip. Okay, I used a Scuba double foam, and I have also gone ahead to iron my interfacing on it. Okay, so the total length that I have here Okay, for both sides is 70 inches. Okay, and that is 35 inches for both sides. Like I said, I cut out the inches. I cut out the strip for both sides separately. Okay, and then I joined them at the midpoint. Okay, so that it will be easy for me to identify my center back. The width I used here is 6 inch because we cut out 2.5 inch on our fabric. Okay, so this 6 inch will eventually be unfold into two, which will be 3 inches. Okay, so the 0.5 inches extra will be for the seam allowance. So the next thing to do now is to sew down on our strip. Okay, and to do that, I'm going to be marking from, I'm going to be taking the measurement that I have from my center back to the notched parts on this strip. Okay, the measurement that I told us to write down earlier, the 14.5 inches, I am going to be marking it out on this strip. Okay, so from that 14.5 inch that I mark, I'm going to be sewing down to the edge of the strip. So it means that I'm going to be leaving from 1 inch to 14.5 inch opened. I will not be sewing down on it, and that would be the V part of my dress. Okay, that will be the part where the neckline, where the head is going to pass through. I hope you understand what I am saying. So from 1 inch to 14.5 inch will be opened, which is from the center back to the part that I notched. So from 14.5 to the hem of my strip will be seamed down. I are going to be sewing it down at the midpoint. So you're just going to get the midpoint of these 6 inches width, which is 3 inches. Okay, so I'm going to be marking, getting the midpoint at 3 inches all the way down. Then I would roll it out, okay, so that I don't make mistakes on my sewing machine. So I'm just going to mark out the 3 inches from that 14.5 inches downwards. Then I will roll it into a straight line, and then I will take it to my sewing machine and sew down the midpoint. Okay, then I'll connect the lines. Okay, I'll connect the lines like so. Okay, I'll connect the lines like so. Okay, so I'm just going to be stitching. So as you can see, I have sewn down on that, that part where I rolled out. I have sewn down on it. So the essence of rolling it out is just so that you can have a perfect straight line, and then you can have an even middle. Okay, so after sewing, you're just going to lift, you're going to lift the strip just as you see me do right now in the video. Okay, you're going to lift the upper part of that strip. Okay, and then you're going to fold it over, and then you're going to have it laid like this on the table. As you can see that we have we have some inches opened, so that inches is what you have from your center back down to the part that you notched, which will also be the allowance for your neckline, or for the head to pass through. Okay, I hope you understand that. So just go ahead and give it a good press so that it can sit well. As you can see now, I have ironed it, and then it is laying so well. Okay, I have ironed it now, and it is laying so well. So the part where you joined the two strips at the back, okay, the part where you join the two strips, the two halves of the strip is, that will be your center back. So just notch your center back for this, and it is easily identifiable because that is where you joined the two halves, okay, of your strip. Get the center back of your strip, attach it to the center back of your fabric where you have already notched, and then pin down, and then just go round your dress like that, and pin your strip on your fabric all the way down to the hem, as you see me do. Okay, I apologize, the camera is not, I didn't know the camera isn't really capturing what I am pinning down here. Okay, so all I'm doing here is just pin down my strip round the neckline of my fabric. And when you are sewing, make sure you follow the line on your fabric. Okay, because don't forget, the neckline on our fabric is not straight. Okay, so I would like to start by apologizing, okay, because I didn't know that the parts where I was joining the upper and the lower parts together did not record. Okay, so I'm just going to be explaining what I did. What I simply did is to, subtract the full length of my gown, okay, from the upper part. For me, I'm working with a full length of 55 inches minus the 29 inches that I have left at the upper part. So that is what I cut out for the lower parts. Okay, so you're just going to subtract your full length from your half length, and then you cut it out for your lower part. And then the width of your gown, okay, the width of the pieces you are going to be cutting is just based on what you have on the two sides for the front. Okay, and for the scuba, I cut out a width of 6 inches by the same length that I used for the champagne gold. Okay, so I used the same width as the one that I used for the upper part, which is also 6 inches in width. Okay, so the length is still depending on what you have for your lower part. Okay, so what I did for the black scuba again is that I cut out two pieces and I used interfacing in between them, just as we did for the front. Okay, so that it can also be as thick as what we have for the upper part. So the only difference is that for this one we are not seaming down at the midpoint. Okay, so we're just going to leave it like that. So after that, I'm just going to take this to the machine and sew and join them together on the sides. Okay, I'm going to be joining the scuba to the two pieces at the front, just as you see me showing right here. So I'm just going to sew down on both sides, and I'll come back to show us what I have. So that is all that I did. So after that, I'm just going to be going ahead to join all the pieces together, because as you can see, I cut them out separately and then I joined them separately. They are all still separated. Okay, if you want to, you can decide to join the three pieces together. You can decide to join your own three pieces together before adding it to the upper fabric. I don't know if you understand what I am saying. The three pieces of fabric that you have for the lower parts, you can decide to join them together first of all, and then you just you place them on the upper part and you join them, whichever way works for you. But for me, I joined them separately first, and then I'm going to be going into my sewing machine and sewing across, just as you see me place it like that. Okay, I'm going to be sewing it like that. So I'm going to go do that on the sewing machine now, and I'll come back to show us what I have. Okay, so I have gone ahead to join all the pieces of my feather hopper and the lower parts together, and you can see what it looks like. Okay, and I have also joined the scuba and the champagne gold on the sides. So this is what it looks like right now. Okay, as you can see, we are here to join the main sides of the fabric, but I have joined the three pieces for my front. So the next thing to do now is just to flip over and sew the sides of our dress. Okay, so I have placed my fabric, okay, and I'm just going in with my round measurements. Okay, don't forget that at the beginning we cut out 16.5 and we have used 0.5 inch to seam, to the scuba, so we are left with 16 inches, and my actual allowance that I left for the fabric is 1 inch. So I'm going in to mark 15 inches round the upper part. Okay, so our gown is now actually straight. It is a bit trimmed at the lower end, so what we are going to be marking out for the upper part will be different from what we are marking out for the lower part. So for me, I'm just marking the 15 inches across the upper part, and then at the armhole area I am going to be going in by 1 inches. So I am using the joining at that scuba, the center joining at that scuba as my center front, because that is the middle of my dress. Okay, so I'm just placing my tape rule at that mid part of the scuba where we joined, and I am marking 15 inches. So at the armhole region, I'm also going to be going in by 1 inch, because the allowance I left for my fabric is 1 inch all through. So I'm going to be connecting the lines, and then I will move to the lower parts. Okay, so for the lower part, you are first of all going to determine where you want your side slit to end. Okay, don't forget that your gown has a side slit. So I have placed my tape rule from the shoulder down, and I'm just going to be marking 40 inches, because that is the nail length for the nail length I want to use. Okay, from the shoulder to the knee I want to use is 4, so I'm just marking it at exactly the nail length. You can decide to come down a little from the knee length, okay, and you can decide to maybe go a little bit up, but for me the nail length is just the perfect measurement. So I am marking 40 inches, and on that line I'm going to be coming in by 3 inches. The round measurement that I have at the upper part, I'll be subtracting 3 inches from that round measurement, and I will be taking that as my round measurement for the lower part so that it can be trimmed. I hope you understand what I am saying. So to get your round measurement for the lower part, first of all, get the center front for the lower part. Okay, and for me, I have gone ahead to divide that scuba into two. Don't forget that we should have 5 inches left there, so I have marked out 2.5 as the midpoint of the scuba, and from there I placed my tape rule and I marked the round measurement. So just get the center back for your scuba fabric and place your round measurement. So the round measurement I used is 12.5. So that means that I subtracted 2.5 from what I have at the upper part. Don't forget that the upper part, the round measurements we took was 15 inches, but for the lower part I took 12.5 inches, and I'm just going to connect it. Okay, so after that you can just go ahead and reshaping your gown, okay, from so that the slant, so that the slanted part will not be too, it's not be too direct. Okay, so I've just gone ahead to do that. So I'm going to repeat the same thing, everything I did on this side for the other side. Then I will take it to my sewing machine and I would sew. So at this point, guys, I've gone ahead to sew down on the sides of my dress, and the two sides are now joined. So basically just sew down following the line that you have already drawn. Okay, so the next thing I'm doing now is to go in and cut my pockets. So I left 7 inches for the pocket opening before, and to cut out my pocket I'm cutting 8 inches by 9 inches depth. Okay, so that I would have enough space. I'll have 0.5 inches for the seam allowance on both sides. So I'm just going to cut out 4 pieces of this pocket and join to my fabric. Okay, I would not really be showing the process for joining the pockets because this video is already very long. Okay, so from here you just give it a curl because you don't want your pockets to be squared. I just give it a little curl. Okay, you need to curl here, and on this other side you can also give it a curl. Okay, this job is not coming out well on the fabric. Okay, so you just give it a curl just as you do for your neck, just as you do for your neckline, you do for your other parts of your gown. And that is basically it. So I'm cutting it out now, and then I'm cutting out 4 pieces of it. You need 4 of this. Okay, 2 on each side. Okay, for your dress. Okay, so you can go as as deep as you probably want your pockets to be, but I think I'm okay with this measurement for mine. What we have on the other side, just so that you can understand what I am saying. Okay, so I'm just doing this now, just to show us. Okay, so what I'm saying is you see that all your seam will be on the outside of the fabric, so you seam round this way, and by the time you turn the fabric. Okay, so I am done fixing the pockets of my gown. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Okay, and this is what the inside looks like. Okay, so it is looking very neat and good to go. Okay, I'm yet to iron my outfit because there is currently no light. Okay, so I'll just to iron it so you can see how it looks. So the final thing we are going to be doing now is to add our asooke to our sleeve. Okay, so like I said, I have 2 asookes that I bought for this particular dress, but I am still trying to, I was contemplating which one will go better for the clothes. Okay, this one looks like it was actually made for the clothes. Okay, but because I feel that it will blend in too much with the outfit, okay, to make it look more monochrome. Okay, so I decided to go with something that looks a bit busy. Okay, so basically what I'm just going to be doing is I'll just be, depending on how big you want your asooke to be, I think I would want to start mine from somewhere like this. Okay, so I want it to be about this size. Okay, I want it to be about this size on my fabric, let's say like so. Okay, so I'm just going to measure that out, how the length of your asooke. Okay, or you can actually check for the length, the sleeve of your dress. Okay, the existing sleeve of your dress from the center back to what you have. Okay, let me just measure that. Okay, so that you use the asooke to complement whatever is left. Okay, and you cut out the parts that you need. You cut out the parts that you need and you just fix on your. One thing I'm also going to be doing is adding my fringes. Okay, so I've gotten the fringes for my clothes, so I'm just going to be adding it to, you know, the sides of my dress like it is in the picture. Okay, so you can decide to double your own depending on the quantity that you got. Okay, you can decide to double your own, you can decide to leave a single. And so once we are done joining our asooke and the fringes, you can just go ahead and hem the sides of your dress where you have the slit, and also hem the lower part of your dress. And with that, we are done with our dress. Okay, so that will be the end of today's tutorial. Thank you very much for sticking by. If thank you very much for sticking by to the end. If you have enjoyed this video, please do well to like and subscribe to this channel for more contents like this. And if you have any question, feel free to drop your questions and I'll be sure to answer all of your questions. Thank you very much for sticking around. Bye, and I'll see you in my next video.